World of Warcraft has a big problem. World of Warcraft has a big problem. It could be within their lore, it could be in their mechanics, it could be in their customer service and what they're trying to tackle. But you know it, I know it, everybody knows it. The game right now is in turmoil in a way. And that is because Blizzard has removed so much of the add-ons and everything that they're having to make everything easier. But what I think they've tried to do is to make sure that the game is approachable by everybody, to make sure that they can all play it and not hate life. So let's get into this real quick.
Character to being one of the most despised characters in Warcraft lore. Well, everybody, it was inevitable, but the cracks in World of Warcraft Midnight are finally starting to show. WoW Midnight has one big major problem so far, and that's what I want to talk about on this video, a topic that everybody seems to be discussing, and I figured I would weigh in and share my thoughts. So first of all, to the naysayers out there, the people that are religiously praying in the back of their minds that World of Warcraft Midnight will just go down as yet another horrible World of Warcraft expansion. Yes, the expansion does have some cracks in it, and yes, it does have a major problem. But in terms of gameplay, WoW Midnight is still very, very solid. People love the delves in this expansion. The world is fantastic to explore. There's plenty to do in this expansion, to the point that I've even seen some people saying that there's almost too much to do in WoW Midnight because...
And that's what I was talking about. The overwhelming aspect of coming and playing the game, really, if you aren't able to handle a lot of pressure and you put a lot of that pressure on yourself, it could be a real head mess that you could put yourself into.
They have all this fun content to explore, but there's so much of it you don't know, which cookie jar to put your fingers into. PvP is fun and so on. But the one big problem, the one big issue that's plaguing the expansion is not really the gameplay, but it's the story. It's the lore. And, I want to confess something to you guys. Those of you that recently have come on to this Nixium Talks channel, you've subscribed, and, thank you guys for that, by the way. It is a brand new YouTube channel, so I appreciate you all being here. But maybe you've watched my first few videos on this expansion where I really went deep into, I guess, talking about the lore of Midnight as I was experiencing it. And, I admit I'm still kind of formulating my full opinions on the story, but I think that, maybe I gave the lore of this expansion a little too much credit. So let me just explain what I mean by that real fast before we get into, what exactly has made everybody very upset. So when this expansion first came out, one of its titlemost characters was Arator. And when you play through the Midnight main storyline, for those of you that maybe haven't done it yet, you're really going to follow Arator as he is struggling with this conflict of faith, because his mother, Alaria, she is not an agent of the void, but she's a user of the void, and she tries to use the void for good. And then he has his father, Terrelion, who he is the High Exarch of the Army of the Light. So he's all about the light and, your traditional, I guess, light stuff or whatever. So he's in this kind of mixed religion family situation. Also, his parents, they were gone for a very long time. They were with the Army of the Light. They were fighting against the Burning Legion and, agents of Shadow and stuff, the Void and whatnot. So they were gone for a very long time. And
I actually listened to that on audiobook, and that was that was the first and is still the only audiobook that I've listened to on lore, and I thought that was so appealing, because that's when Illyria actually went in and became an agent of the, of the void, basically. And you had Terrelion trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? And then you had the light telling her, well, we can't really work with you. We can't really trust you because, of the void. And it just the turmoil between their whole relationship they went into. I didn't even really know about Arator until later on, but that was interesting.
Now they've come back, and Arator, he's kind of caught in the middle between his mother and his father, and he doesn't really know where to place himself, because he's a paladin, and he's a very devout paladin. But Midnight introduces this story where, you know, Arator sees how the light can be misused, how it can be abused, and how the void can actually be used for good. And this puts him in a little bit of almost like a religious conflict. And I'm saying all that because when the expansion first launched, admittingly, like, I was a really big fan of this story. But I think that admittingly, at least in regards to the Arator story, I think that, like, I gave Blizzard a little bit too much, not credit, but I treated the story as something that I thought was going to be deeper than what it actually ended up being. So no one's really talking about this. Like, everyone's talking about what I'm going to talk about.
I don't really find that there was a big issue with the story so far. I think it's been very fluid. You know, I think it's covering the bases, unless I'm missing something here, but we'll find out what he's talking about. I mean, it kind of educated me on things that I was missing.
Here in 1 minute, but I just want to talk about this specifically. I really enjoy, you know, playing characters, like even like in role play or something, or like in LARP or whatever, or reading stories about characters that are put into the middle of like two conflicting worldviews, and they try to reconcile between the two of them, but ultimately they're pulled to one side, but you see the conflict and stuff. I guess maybe a character that maybe most of you guys might be aware of is maybe Uhtred from like the Last Kingdom series. He's a really good example of this. You know,
You guys ever watch that show? I love that Uhtred. Oh my god, I actually have a character named Uhtred, or I did. I might have deleted it, but yeah, definitely. So that's one of the things when they talk about, you know, being on the good side, being on the bad side, finding the inner turmoil, and trying to see what it is both of them can bring out that is good. You know, having to work with when we're going up against Dimensius, trying to work with xal'atath and understand that, you know, even though we know in the end she's going to betray us, that is her main objective, because she's not doing anything for anybody unless it's going to benefit her, yet we still have to buy into that. And then when we come here, we have to see Arator and then deal with the mom and dad issue, because one's the dark and one's the light. Well, that's where they go into, you know, shadow and light being that he is that. He is exactly that. So where is he going to land? I don't think his story is going to be told until probably later on in this expansion, or maybe even in the Last Titan, that we'll find out exactly where he's going to land at.
Saxon is raised as a Dane. You know, he was born a Christian, but now he's a pagan, but he's fighting for the Christians. I really enjoy characters like that. And I was hoping, like with Arator, we would actually see him struggling more with the syncretism that he was practicing with the void and the light. You know, if he was practicing any form of syncretism, I was interested to see, you know, maybe this character, maybe practicing like he's a follower of the light, but, you know, he holds tenets that would be of the void, or he holds void-like opinions about things that other worshippers of the light would never agree.
But I don't think he could have that, because even though his mother has come back, I don't believe she's been a huge part in his life, because he's been residing in Silvermoon, if I understand correctly, and she's not allowed in Silvermoon. She only recently, if you have the short story, hear that she came back to visit him, but nothing ever says, you know, unless somebody maybe knows, never says like, I haven't seen you in such a long time, like how many years, because as we all know, these characters, they take on immortal time, like they don't age the same as like we would age, you know what I mean? It kind of seems like it's off to the point where 5 years for us in real time is nothing to them, because they live for so long. Now, if that doesn't apply to somebody like Anduin and, you know, Terralion, because they're both supposed to be human, and the elves do have a longer lifespan, then what exactly, how does that affect Arator? Because he's, you know, he's a hybrid.
On. Maybe to maybe use the Last Kingdom again as an example, it would be like, you know, a I guess like a Dane from back in the Dane law converting to Catholicism, but he's treating like the old Germanic, Danish Norse gods as like saints. Like there's a god up here, and then there's like the Norse gods, like those are the saints or whatever. They're like on the same level as the saints or whatever. And of course, like, every Catholic would say, no, it's ridiculous. That's nonsense. And every, I guess pagan dude would be like, dude, that's nonsense. You know what I mean? But for him or her or whatever, like that weird syncretism is them trying to reconcile the two worlds. And I really was hoping to kind of see that with Arator. And some of the things about his story didn't really make much sense. I mean, even like the premise that I talked about, he was,
I'm sorry. I start laughing because I always bring it up during stream. Is like the first time that we as a character player are introduced into Arator and asked to go do these quests with him. We start hearing about all his dad issues, and I was just kind of thrown off by that. As somebody that just meets you would think that the characters inside of World of Warcraft wouldn't be so forthcoming to strangers, because you might fight under the same banner or towards the same cause. Like, I don't need to open up to you about my inner feelings and things that are going on between me and my dad, because who are you? I don't know you. So I kind of found that off-putting. I would like a little bit more of that to be realistic. Like, if he wanted to have that conversation, wouldn't that be with somebody that he's had a relationship longer than me, just getting on on the ground, to help fight this, and he's telling you about his dad issues.
He's realizing that the light can be misused and abused by people, and Blizzard sort of establishes in the story that he's sort of surprised by this or something, and yet Arator is fully aware of like the Scarlet Crusade all along. Like, so it's a little bit weird that he's like, what? Like, my dad can be like, he can be like a light wielder, but kind of be a cock. Like, what? Like, like, so it was a little weird in some places, but I was really hoping that Blizzard would go into a lot more depth with his character, and they really didn't. And then also, like, with the Sindarai, with the Blood Elves, I was hoping that Blizzard was going to go into maybe just a lot more depth with, and to be fair, maybe this one will come later, but like the Blood Elves and the Amani are kind of working together to fight against the Void and xal'atath, and I wanted to see a bit more of like these two cultures have been at war with each other for generations. Like, this is not a small thing for them to be like, okay, we're gonna work together against this enemy. Like, this is
where is this at? This looks like a short story that I have not heard or seen yet. Anybody know? Because this looks like, for a time, Arator was, well, yeah, okay. Now that, never mind, because Varissa is the one that raised Arator, therefore he would be living in Silvermoon, and therefore Lotharmar would be training him. Okay, I think I got it. Never mind.
This is like multi-generational trauma. How many children have seen their parents killed? Like, how many sons have buried their fathers? How many daughters have buried their mothers? Like, on both sides. Like, this is a huge thing. And I wanted to see that explored a little bit more. And maybe it will be, like, in future patches, but it really hasn't been yet. And, I can go on with this. But, like, this is, like, when it comes to Warcraft lore, I understand that MMOs are, you're kind of limited in what you can do with an MMORPG. But sometimes I wish there were more moments, like the stay a while and listen moments, where we really get to see Blizzard just bring these characters to life in new ways. These, like, where Blizzard is attempting not just to write another stupid paladin or just another stupid mage or another dumb troll, but like, these are real characters struggling with real things that we ourselves possibly can relate to. I mean, I didn't grow up like this, but maybe someone listening to this, maybe you grew up in a maybe you grew up in
maybe you grew up in Silvermoon, and you got trained, and your mom was part of the dark, and your dad was a priest or something. I don't know. No, but I think it's really neat. That was a nice added feature when they started doing the stay a while and listens. I do enjoy those, and I do try to listen to those. without any music and really feel what the story is. And one of the things that I've also come to realize is that no matter what you hear about in the lore, they can always retcon things by saying it was as a perspective of someone else. So this is something that you might know of, but it didn't exactly happen like that, because what we know and what we've heard comes from so and so, but really it goes like this. And this is something that I think they've done some of in Chronicle, if I understand correctly, that they retcon some of the previous lore because it wasn't going in the direction that the devs thought the story should go after a time of sitting and trying to connect all the yarn on the darts or the pegboard and try and get that out. So that could be a reason why they try to retcon, because I'm sure they want to have continuity. You know, like the whole thing with the jailer, which was very odd to introduce a character like that we had never heard of. You know, when everybody was seeing everything about the figure with the chains on them, we all thought that was Garrosh, and I believe that that did end up being Garrosh, but we thought he might have a bigger role when it came to what the Shadowlands was going to be in the mall and things like that.
Family where your mom was a Catholic and your dad was a Dane. You know what I mean? Like, you get the idea, but like, and maybe you sit there and you struggle with that. Like these sorts of stories and, you know, like the choices that these characters make, like, you know, I just find it to be very interesting. And we haven't really seen Blizzard do that too much with this expansion. You know, in Arator's story, it just kind of like ends suddenly. He just builds his father's shield back, and then he's just like, okay, well, anyway, you know, and that whole internal conflict is gone. It's just,
I don't know that it's gone. I think he's trying to maybe not. So in my opinion, he doesn't want to ruin the relationship that he does have with his father, because his father's been probably more constant in his life, even while his mom has been back with Turalian. I think his dad has been more an influence into his life than his mother. I could be wrong. Somebody let me know. I don't believe that they've had much communication or things like that, because of course she's of the void. But I think he's Arator doesn't want to try and burn the bridge that he's developed with his dad. And his way to make amends, of course, was building the shield. But even Turalian said, you know, I basically appreciate it, but you know, I'm not there yet, or I'm not ready. I still have too much to deal with, or maybe face. You know, my demons can't be solved by this, but I appreciate it. And so it's kind of like it's not done. It'll still, I think, come back up, whether it be in a book or maybe another short story. But I don't believe it's been concluded to say, you know, it could come back many moons from. You know, you have family, you have issues with your family, and you choose to kind of squash it for now. But you know, if you get nice and heated later on down the road, you might turn around and have yourself a good old, you know, knockdown, drag out fight with the words and let each other have it. He chooses not to do that right this moment. He's just gonna be like, all right, let's move on. We have other things to worry about right now, and they do right now. You know, you got this big voidy thing coming out of Silvermoon, so a time and a place.
he's just Arator now. Like, there's really nothing to say about him. He's just fighting for the army of the light and fighting for Silvermoon and fighting for Azeroth and whatever. The main thing, though, that has really bothered people, though, along with maybe a little bit of that, like, I don't know if the right word is lacklusterness, but that sort of, you know, people getting a bite, but they want like the full course meal with the story, the stuff that I've been talking about already. But recently, you know, this new cinematic has come out, a new like raid ending cinematic that shows xal'atath being confronted by, well, Arator and his aunt, Varisa Windrunner. And I was going to upload a reaction to this cinematic here on Nixium Talks, but over the past few days, I've actually been a bit sick. So the cinematic came out while I was struggling with a sore throat. So I watched it, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to fake a reaction for you guys. I want you to hear my genuine first impressions. Anyway, so what happens is Arator and Varisa, they're talking to xal'atath, and xal'atath is just kind of doing her thing. She's just like, you guys are dumb. I'm gonna win, I'm real smart, and I'm evil. And then suddenly, from out of the blue, something happens that has just pissed off so many people. To quote what
Oh, shut up. I haven't seen this fucking. Oh, we got to find this one. We have to find this. Oh, no. Oh, I should probably pause this and watch that first. All right, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna find this video. Let me turn on the music because I want to watch this video, and then yeah, because that looks okay. I want to see where we're going at. In the meanwhile, listen to the music because I'm gonna go make some coffee. Basically, letting him go on so he doesn't ruin it for me. Let's check it out.
You windrunners. You just don't know when to lay down and die.
We windrunners are just stubborn that way.
You? I honestly didn't factor for you.
Death comes for all, xal'atath. Even your wretched kind.
Oh, shit.
We'll finish this another time.
Oh, shit. She's back.
I thought you said you could never leave the moor.
There are ways, nephew. But they do take their toll. Regardless, you told me that Silvermoon was in peril. That it needed its Ranger General one last time.
Sylvanas, if the Maw cannot hold you, then maybe there's a way back for you. Back to us.
Oh,
My
shit.
penance, my true work has only begun, little sister. The Shadowlands are not at all what they seem. I cannot rest until I've uncovered the truth. Still, I hope to see you both again. Before the end begins.
What? Oh, shit. Okay. All right. So, I mean, she's not back, but she came back to scare off xal'atath, you know, to stop the killing and maybe save their lives. So, oh, that's crazy. That is crazy. All right, let's get back into this Nixian video now.
many have said over on X and in the YouTube comments and stuff, this is not my statement, this is you guys, like, but it's true. It is a straight Marvel movie moment happens. Sylvanas Windrunner, she just shoots an arrow suddenly at xal'atath from out of a portal. It blows up one of like the floating void orbs on her shoulder. Sylvanas emerges and she just drops some horrendously boring dialogue. You know, oh, we Windrunners, we're just hard to kill. And, you know,
Come on, that's the Tony Stark moment. I mean, come on. Why she got to come up with some kind of heroic line? I don't think she's ever come up with a heroic line. Has she? Except for the Horde. That's all that I know of. Other than that, she's always been just badass, you know. She lets her arrows and her skill do the talking.
Shadowlands are not what they seem, and death is, it comes for all, even you, xal'atath, and you guys, like, I just wanted to make sure you were safe to prepare for what's coming. You know, it's just...
Yeah, that part where, you know, she comes out and she does that one arrow and, you know, gets a hug and gives her a little bit of words and then disappears back to the maw. Like there's like that was it. There should be more there. There's not enough meat on that piece of chicken right there. There got to be a little bit more meat.
This boring dialogue and her hinting at this future thing, and it's of course a callback to Shadowlands, and people have just been infuriated by this. Maybe not everybody, maybe some of you guys listening to this, like, you know, you thought it was cool or whatever, but there's quite a lot of people that have been upset by it.
I thought it was all right.
You know, just even with like the simple questions of like, Sylvanas shot an arrow at xal'atath through a portal when she couldn't even see her. Okay.
Well, she's great like that. And by her saying she's the Ranger General, I've heard this in the past where I always thought she was the Ranger Captain and she did not want to be the Ranger General. So how is it that she's the Ranger General now? I don't understand that part. But I did hear that there was once a portrait of her that did say she was the Ranger General. Is that right? Or was it Illyria that was the Ranger General? I'm confused on that part because I don't know that part of the lore. And it's so long ago and it's such a throwaway thing that I've never really thought about it.
How did Sylvanas get out of the maw? Well, we don't know. I mean, she was supposed to be trapped in there. Like, what is Sylvanas talking about when she says, oh, the Shadowlands are not what they seem? We don't know. Sylvanas, of course, makes reference to some upcoming threat that apparently is even greater than the void that the jailer talked about at the end of Shadowlands, which nobody cares about. Like, people don't mind being teased a little bit, like being told, like, you know, oh, something bigger is on the way. But man, can it get boring and really old really fast. Like, especially like, you got to be really careful with it because, like, if we're facing a world-ending threat, like the void invasion of Azeroth right now, and then someone shows up, and then like, early in the expansion, I mean, the expansion has been out only a little over a month right now.
Hey,
and
Bun
someone
Lovers, how you doing,
shows up
buddy?
and says, oh, hey, I know you're dealing with this world-ending threat, but something even worse is on the way.
Yeah, right.
Like, that immediately makes the threat that you're currently fighting just less interesting.
Yeah, I didn't really get that from that. Did you guys get that from that? I didn't really get that from that. I know she's saying there's more, and she's like investigating something going on in the Shadowlands. And I hopefully I'll be back before the end of the beginning of the end really happens or something like. I don't really know. Don't really understand it.
Because it's like, oh, what's the more interesting threat that's coming this way? You know, like, dude, that threat is going to drop even higher item level gear. I want to be fighting that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just makes like the current conflict just a lot less interesting. So you needed like this forebodingness. Usually you got to kind of keep it near the end of an expansion, and you just got to be careful with it in terms of writing. And people have just pointed out that this is just, well, here's the thing. People don't like Sylvanas, ladies and gentlemen.
What?
There are a lot of people out there.
Wait, what? Who doesn't like Sylvanas? You guys, who doesn't like Sylvanas? So she burned the tree down. They just built a new tree. It was just a tree. I mean, bigger and, you know, other characters have done far worse than burn a tree.
That, man, they loved Sylvanas, and I am one of them. Bros, dude, first time I played Warcraft 3, Sylvanas, like, well, actually, let me back up. I started playing Classic WoW back in 2005, and I had never played Warcraft 3 before. So I was just a Forsaken running around in the Undercity, and there was the Dark Lady, and it was like, Sylvanas was so cool. You know, like, she's plotting against her horde allies. She has all these like apothecaries, like preparing this plague of undeath or something, bro, or like a new plague of undeath, that is. And I was like, oh, dude, like, this is so cool. Like, the Dark Lady is, and she's almost worshipped, like, almost like this, not like a deity, but she is like so loved by her followers that they're saying things like, oh, Dark Lady, watch over you and stuff. Like, she's this, almost like this, like,
Oh my
this,
God.
like, omnipresent force,
Yeah.
or like, you know, lesser goddess or something. Like, the Forsaken loved her, and I loved her. And then I played Warcraft 3, and dude, Sylvanas was so cool. Like, She was one of my favorite lore characters in WoW for so many years. And then, I mean, I don't really want to go on a full Sylvanas rant, but I guess like I gotta, you know, give you guys a little bit of context here. But man, like, I don't know about you guys, but man, did I hate it when Blizzard decided to make her war chief. I thought that was so dumb and so out of place for her. Like, this is like a woman of the shadows. This is a woman who, her kingdom is the Undercity, not the ruins of Lordaeron, but like the sewers beneath, hiding deep beneath the earth. Like, this is the Dark Lady. Like, she is not someone that goes out in the open. She's someone that schemes in the shadows with Veramothras and, you know, her forsaken apothecaries and stuff. Like, that was Sylvanas. And then suddenly making her war chief, like, bro, I remember all those years ago being like, what? Like, that, like, how could you make her war chief? Like, of all people. And then her story, I mean, at least in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, to be fair, like, her story just went downhill from there. Like, all the crap with her just trying to, like, her starting some big ass war against the Alliance was cool, especially if you're like a world PvPer at heart like me. But bro, like, the whole, like, killing as many people as possible and all the BFA crap. And then, of course, Shadowlands comes along, and, you know, Sylvanas is working for some dude named the Jailer, and nobody even knows what the Jailer's.
You see, but that I blame Alex, that dude Alex, that dude that got fired from Blizzard. I blame him, because if I understand, he's the one that made them go that direction with Sylvanas. It wasn't what, like, Steve Denuser wanted to do. If anything, I think Steve Denuser loved Sylvanas as much as any of the loyalists, you know, because that character resonated with him, and he was a total fanboy. So when Alex Afabiabi, probably getting that all right. When Alex said, "This is what I want you to do, and this is how I want the story to go," it was just him. I don't think any of the story writers really wanted to go that way.
Plan really was, because it was all so vague and whatever. And apparently there was some great threat that Sylvanas and the Jailer were preparing for, but ooh, you don't know what it is, you know. And it was so boring. Like, she went from being like this incredible character to being one of the most despised characters in Warcraft lore, like, genuinely despised. And I mean, bros, I saw it like in my YouTube comment section over on Nixium. I mean, I've seen it here, like here on Nixium Talks already. Like, dude, people are sick of Sylvanas. They're still sick of Sylvanas, and we haven't even seen her since Shadowlands. And it's like Blizzard knows this. Like, they know that people don't really like Sylvanas anymore, that they really need a break from her, because
they don't like her, but yet they like xal'atath. I mean, what is the deal with that? You know, you look at Taliesin, he's all about being a Zali mommy and things like that. It just makes no sense to me. Sylvanas has been throughout the game, throughout the lore, and people still, you might hate her, might like her, but, you know, then everybody wants xal'atath. She just got done killing Illyria. Well, I mean, she's trying to essentially just wipe out Azeroth as a whole and make it, I think, into a big voidy place.
Blizzard was just circle jerking just around this character for so long, for like several expansions. And, you know, people are just sick of her. And we've only had, what, one expansion, or, well, two expansions, you know, Dragonflight and the War Within. And, you know, Sylvanas is already back. You know, she's already back. You know, she's out of the maw. You know, her penance isn't over, but apparently, like, you know,
she got some, what do they give that to the people that are in jail? Work release? She got some work release.
her penance isn't so, like, I guess, rigid or extreme, that she can step out of the maw if she needs to, I guess, save her family. You know, how did she know that Arator and Varisa were in that exact spot in the Sunwell? Like, how did she know that? Like, we don't know, but like, it was just a Marvel movie moment. It was like, there are people out there, there's even people watching this right now. Maybe you guys got started like in BFA or whatever. Man, you love Sylvanas. You think she's great. She's one of your favorite characters or something. And like, it was just like a total fan service moment. It felt like just, oh, this character that some people really like just steps out of a portal, says some BS, and then she just leaves. Like she shows up and just leaves. Like, I love the memes that you guys have made where it's like, oh, my job here is done. And Arator's like, but you haven't done anything, Sylvanas. And she's like, yeah, exactly. And she just leaves. Yeah. So anyway, the story of Midnight has been very weak for a lot of people. It's been very weak so far. Like, there have been some cool moments, but, you know, Arator's story being a bit like just disappointing because it's like you were building up all this depth and then you didn't really explore it. You know, Quel'thalas, well, the Horde being completely absent from this expansion. Like, where the hell is the Horde? I don't know. You know, where?
Yeah, exactly. There wasn't a lot of the Horde in it. I don't understand. You know, we've built up this story to be basically Thanos in the finger snap. And now the Avengers and everyone is Shield's not there, and the Avengers aren't there. They're, you know, I don't even know where Thrall is, or like or Jaina Proudmoore. Where are they at? You know, I did Lore Master. I don't recall really being involved with any of them at all. So where are they?
Are like the mages of the Kirin Tor. Well, I guess they all got blown up in Dalaran, like whatever. Like, where are all these like armies and peoples of Azeroth that could show up to be fighting the Void? I don't know. They're just somewhere, I guess. You know, like, the story has just been very weak with Shadowlands with Midnight so far. And this recent cinematic, you know, has most certainly not helped with that. The gameplay is great. You know, I'm personally having a ton of fun with WoW Midnight from just a gameplay perspective, but the story.
I'm finally just maybe getting back, and I say maybe because I'm telling you what, that Lore Master, that broke me, and then leveling up four alts, that broke me. So I'm, you know, I know WoW will always be here. You know what I mean? It's one of those games that the longevity is there. Have I enjoyed the world so much? You know what? It's okay. I'm glad I get to see more of Silvermoon and experience that more, but I don't really care.
Story and like how Blizzard is treating their characters, you know, it does feel very Marvel at times. I think that is a very good description that I've seen, like some people saying, just how they treat their characters and their little fan moments where they pop up for a second for people to, you know, do their little claps and whatnot, and then the character goes away. You know, they have their like 2 seconds and whatever. But at least the gameplay is good. You know, at least the gameplay has been fun so far. At least in my opinion. No, I'm still having a ton of fun playing Midnight. Although recently, I do confess to you guys, recently for some reason I became possessed to play some Path of Exile 2. And then I started playing Diablo 4. So I've been playing like a little bit of Midnight, but also a lot of PoE 2 and a lot of D4. But I don't know, when you get sick, you know, your brain gets kind of weird, and then you're just like, man, remember D4? Like, damn, like I gotta go there and I gotta play my Necromancer. Like, damn, I gotta play a Druid. You know, I never played a Barbarian. I gotta play that Barbarian. So kind of had one of those moments over the past like 4 or 5 days or so. What do you guys think? I mean, this is the one thing that I see people talking about with Midnight. It is the only thing that I have seen. Like, of course, you know, some people have complained about PvP, and some people have complained about delves, and people have complained about this or that. You know, the raid, you know, being too hard. Like, I saw a thing like, oh, the new raid is way too hard. Like, you know, yes, like I've seen that, but like overwhelmingly, like when I'm looking online and I'm scrolling through social media or I'm scrolling through comments, like, the only big thing that's really standing out with Midnight thus far is just the lore and the story. Anyway, so, but I don't know, like, you know, the Herondir or whatever, the Heronar area, like, it's so dull, you know, compared to everything else. But anyway, like, what do you guys think, though? I mean, this is just me just ranting from the heart, just sharing what I've observed. Do you think the Midnight lore is poo? Do you think that it's good? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, that's what you have. I mean, that's what we have right now. You know, the game as a whole. The game as a whole is just that. You know, it's another expansion with more story, more lore. You either like it or you don't. You either are somebody that's into the lore, you're reading all the quests, you're not. You know, keep in mind, this is Chris Metzen's true story. I understand this is something that he was very much involved with, whereas in Dragonflight, he wasn't so much because they had already started that process when he came back aboard. So we'll find out. We'll find out. But that is Nixium. I hope to see what the rest of the story brings out.